This half hour, the Vanity Fair with Caitlyn Jenner on the cover hit stands today. But long before Jenner, a St. John's woman had her own magazine cover to highlight transgender issues. That interview coming up in 10 minutes.
But first, in national news, former Bloc Québécois leader Gilles Duceppe is planning to take his old job back. Duceppe is expected to officially announce tomorrow that he will take over from current. Long before Vanity Fair, this trans advocate graced the cover of a St. John's paper. Krissy's interview with Jennifer McCreath is next.
Hey Canada, get your first.
Well, long before Caitlyn Jenner made the cover of Vanity Fair, a St. John's woman did her own cover shoot to highlight transgender issues. Jennifer McCreath appeared in the now-defunct newspaper The Scope in 2009. Today, 6 years later, Caitlyn Jenner's highly publicized cover hit the magazine stands. For some perspective, Krissy spoke with the original cover girl about the hype and what it means for the trans community.
Thanks so much, Debbie. And Jennifer, it's great to have you here as always. You got your magazine here?
I do indeed. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
Well, it's about time the rest of the world is starting to catch up with St. John's. Going back to 2009 now, what kind of reaction did you get after you were the cover girl?
It's great to see Hollywood catching up with leaders here in Newfoundland. 2009, it was still a trailblazing time for trans activism, and for that to be plastered all over the city of St. John's for 2 weeks, people were like, wow, look at that. That is so different. What an interesting cover. And I think ultimately it put a face to the name of what is a transgender person.
You know, after you did that cover, you were sort of thrust into this position of being a so-called role model for the trans community. Do you think Caitlyn is now in that same position? Is she a role model?
I don't know if the word role model necessarily fits, but the spotlight and the microscope are definitely going to be on Caitlyn. And I think it's going to be critical for Caitlyn to recognize, and I think she does, the world is looking at her and judging the whole trans community based on what they see out of Caitlyn. And I think it's great in one sense that it demonstrates that trans people can come from all walks of life. At the same time, I'm a little concerned that people will get the misunderstanding or misinterpretation that all trans people are exactly like Caitlyn and that their roads to happiness and success will be just as easy.
Well, I want to pick up on that because Caitlyn's transition was very quick. I mean, this happened in soap opera kind of time, right? It was overnight. You know, Bruce became this beautiful woman. And I mean, is that a realistic transition for most people?
Well, for one person, obviously it was. But ultimately, from the time someone realizes they're trans to the ending point of the transition journey, shall we say, we're talking anywhere from 3 to 10 years. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and most importantly, there's a lot of resources that are required that most trans people just don't have easy access to.
It's interesting. It's been interesting to follow the conversation because previously when we talked about Bruce, we celebrated his athletic and business achievements, and now that Bruce is Caitlyn, it's all about looks. What do you make of that part of the conversation?
I think it's reflective of the sad double standard that exists in society, not just in Hollywood, because I've seen it here in Newfoundland and everywhere else. Women are supposed to look young and beautiful, and we tend to downplay or not even worry about what's inside their brain. Perfect example might be me. I'm university educated, got 10 years of senior analyst experience, and all of a sudden I'm out as a trans woman and I can hardly get hired to do minimum wage work. Nobody wants to take me seriously. I'm great for either comic relief or for a soundbite, but I think that's a scary message to all young women that are looking to make something of themselves in this world and make a difference. And that's why I think it's important that all women stand up and be legitimate role models by getting involved, do something for your society, join a nonprofit organization, put your name on a ballot and run for politics, something I did once before and something I might do yet again.
You've got the cover, you've got people talking. What is the next frontier for the trans community?
I think mainstream acceptance into society is on its way. Sadly, we're still a news item when any of us do something out of the so-called ordinary. I don't know what ordinary is to them for us, but I hope the day comes when someone like either Caitlyn or myself is recognized not for being trans, but for doing something else. Finally, I think government policies need to catch up with society. I think society is a lot more accepting of trans people now than they were 20 years ago. It's time to change some of those out-of-date healthcare policies that say we're mentally ill and need to go to Toronto for treatment. We need our doctors to be able to help us. We need human rights. We need access to housing and employment. And we need education at the school level to eliminate bullying. We're all human beings. Diversity is a wonderful thing. Canada is a great country that has that. And ultimately, I think every new trans story adds to that puzzle.
Jennifer, great to talk to you as always. Thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.